Well, hello there. This is Virtual the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. I recently had an 8-game losing streak. Made a mistake of trying to play, thinking that I'll just play a game to win before going to bed at night after midnight. And I lost game after game after game. And by the 9th game, I was starting to feel really sad. So I was really pleased to get this game where I won reasonably well against the Ponziani Opening, which if you saw my video on opening3.com, I traditionally have not done well against. Now let's go take a look. Well, I was very pleased when I got this game and I won reasonably quickly against my opponent rated in the 1300s. So let's have a look. I've got the black pieces, of course, in the open, and the opponent leads with the Ponziani Opening, and that's e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and the Ponziani Opening is the relatively slower c3. It is somewhat suboptimal if you look at Stockfish's evaluation, but there are a lot of tricky lines that can come out of the Ponziani Opening. Now, the best response by black, according to opening principles, is when we're allowed to take the full center with pawns, we should probably do so. So let's play d5. That is the best move. Capture back with the queen, and of course, white can't put their knight onto c3. Now, the common move here for white is probably queen to a4. So I was a little bit surprised when my opponent played the relatively slow bishop to e2. And you can see Stockfish calls this a straight up mistake. And in fact, it's about minus 1.6. And the idea behind the Ponziani is that you need to immediately make use of that, little bit of, extra defense with the opening up the lines and immediately launch a tricky attack. This sort of slow move, looking at sort of kingside castle, is not the tactical idea of the Ponziani. And in fact, it effectively leads to a mistake because black is a little bit ahead. So I just developed my other knight. Stockfish calls this a mistake as well because I've got the opportunity to just push e4, immediately attacking the knight. So that's something I need to know and sort of remind myself of in future games. So often when you've got the opportunity to attack the opponent's knight with a pawn push in the center, it's often a good move. Now, the opponent short castles. I developed my bishop here. So I did see this move at this point, but I wanted to potentially get my pieces developed first. And so one of the ideas I potentially have here is that once that pawn moves forward, I actually potentially unleash a Greek gift-like attack. So that's potentially available. And I actually did see it in this opening at this point. So they play another slow move with b3. They really needed to try to control the center. So I now have e4. Excellent move according to Stockfish. White tried to counterattack my queen, and you can see it's a blunder. And it's a blunder because I was planning on moving my queen probably on the h file at some point anyway. And this move doesn't do anything to defend against that attack on the h2 pawn. Here, at a higher depth, so a low depth, Stockfish doesn't think it's too bad, but the higher the depth Stockfish goes, the worse it becomes. And at around sort of depth 40 is about -5, worse than -5. Just goes to show how strong this attack is. So now I've got queen h5, and some of these arrows show before, and basically this knight is lost. So because there is now an immediate sort of mate attack here, which means that knight is pretty much sort of pinned effectively, it needs to stay guarding that square or at least block the attack. And if it stays there, of course, it will just get taken by my pawn. So here, white thought for quite a while. Let's have a look. Yep, so, over a minute. They decide to play knight h4, but it's at best a temporizing move because I can take, it's undefended, and in fact, now I've got the Greek gift sacrifice. Bishop captures h2, brilliant move. King captures, and here I wasn't sure which was the best next step. Queen captures with check or knight forward with check. Now, having thought this through, I think queen captures is probably best because it's just simpler. The king is forced to go back to g1 after that move, and then we move the knight forward, and then there's a potential mating attack. So it's just very simple because there's no real other options there for white. Now, I eventually played knight to the g4 with check first, and this is actually completely fine. So in this game, the opponent did move the king back, but the king could move forward to one of these two squares, which is still bad, but it just means there's more calculation that I need to make. While playing it the other way, it's just much simpler because the king is forced into one square. So here I gave a check, and as I said, the king moved back here anyway. Pretty much the only way white can prevent a mating attack is to trade their queen for my knight. I now take that knight. There is now a mate here next turn. So here, white has one last opportunity to potentially, take that knight and remove the mate threat. They don't do that. Queen now to h2, its mate, because king can't escape to that square. Good game, GG. The big takeaway from this game is that if you play the Ponziani opening, you need to understand the tactical ideas which come out of that opening. Otherwise, it may end up really, really bad. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.